a tough guy.
You talk to him? What's wrong with you?
Tough guy. He's not even resisting arrest, bro.
His whole nose is
Fight with him?
Bro, then why you just sitting there? He ain't doing nothing.
The parallels are impossible to ignore. A black man restrained by police, one with a knee on his back, the other on his neck, both unable to breathe. This is not George Floyd's story, though. This is the story of what happened to David Smith. 10 years ago, Smith died in the same city as Floyd after an encounter with officers from the same police department. But unlike Floyd, there was no public outcry, no chance of Smith's name, and neither officers were criminally charged nor disciplined. In a statement to the Washington Post, a Minneapolis Police Department spokesman said, quote, "The officers tried to save Mr. Smith once they realized the peril he was facing, and that, quote, if mistakes were made, they were done so under the standard law enforcement practices and training at the time."
They're trained officers, and they killed him. How could that be possible?
The Post examined several hours of footage from the scene and a dozen depositions with officers from the Minneapolis Police Department. What emerges from these records is a rare, detailed look at how the Minneapolis Police Department investigated itself a decade ago when a civilian died in police custody, a death that eerily parallels what happened to Floyd a decade later.
It leaves you at a loss for words. I mean, it's the same police department within the same decade killing two people in a highly similar, horrendous fashion. That just should not happen.
"10 years ago, this building was the downtown YMCA in Minneapolis. It's here on the 6th floor where David Smith had a fatal encounter with police. One of 7 children raised by a single mother in Illinois, Smith moved to Minnesota where he participated in Job Corps and stayed to pursue community college.
He was a good guy. He thought he could go to school and make something amazing of himself. He called home and came home and told us all about his adventures, and everybody was all excited thinking he's gonna come home and start his business and everybody's gonna be a part of it, and that's just not our reality anymore.
But Smith was also struggling with mental illness, and it became more acute in the months leading up to his death. He became a member at the YMCA to cope with his anxiety. On September 9, 2010, Smith went to the Y to play basketball. Before this day, he had several encounters with people who said he seemed unstable. A couple of hours into shooting hoops by himself, Smith had an encounter with a juvenile on the court. A teenage boy said Smith was following him around the court and making him uncomfortable. A supervisor intervened, calling 911.
911. We have a gentleman in the building. He doesn't know who he is. He doesn't know his name. He doesn't know my name. And we need to get this gentleman out of our building.
What happened next was captured from 3 different camera angles: the YMCA security camera, a taser camera, and one of the officer's personal recording device, a pen camera. The time codes on all 3 cameras are incorrect, but the Post was able to calculate the approximate time codes based off documents in the lawsuit. The entire encounter, from start to finish, lasts less than half an hour. Shortly after arriving around 4 p.m., officers Timothy Callahan and Timothy Gorman approached Smith and tried to speak to him. In later depositions, the 2 officers involved recounted the struggle for the Smith family lawyers.
What was David Smith doing when you first laid eyes on him?
Digging through a backpack or a bag or something.
So he wasn't doing anything criminal?
No.
You saw the YMCA tape. You're the first officer to lay hands on him, correct?
That's correct. Kind of stopped and turned towards us, I guess. And in my mind, he was moving towards those small kids that were playing basketball.
Gorman places his hand on Smith's right arm, and Callahan quickly follows suit. Smith fights to get out of their grasp, causing both officers to grab onto him and try to escort him to the other side of the court. It's at this point that the struggle escalates. Officer Callahan's personal pen camera turns on around 4:06 p.m. and begins to record the encounter. 9 seconds into the pen camera recording, Callahan asks Gorman whether or not he should tase Smith.
Should we tase him? I've never done it. Stop, all right? You lost shit.
Smith breaks free and tries to run away. Callahan immediately shoots the first probe at him 23 seconds into the pen camera recording, bringing Smith down.
Down on the ground, now.
It's here, according to Callahan, that Smith punches him. According to the taser log, Callahan fires a second, third, fourth, fifth time in rapid succession, all within 29 seconds of each other.
Tase him again.
Both officers turn Smith onto his stomach. 1 minute and 15 seconds into the recording, Gorman places his knee on Smith's back while handcuffing him. Callahan is straddling Smith's legs.
Punch me in the face. Yeah, now. Now we go up to 4. Short 110. Short 110.
Did Smith ever attempt to rise up?
He was moving his head, and I didn't know if that was an attempt to turn on his side or whatever.
Did you recognize it might be an attempt to breathe?
I didn't think of that one, no, sir.
You didn't.
We need a supervisor at our location.
1 minute and 32 seconds into the pen camera recording, Callahan calls for a supervisor and later an ambulance. 2 minutes and 37 seconds into the recording, Smith begins to do what the medical examiner refers to as agonal breathing. According to medical experts, agonal breathing occurs when a person is struggling to breathe.
I can't believe he punched me in the face. Yeah, he did. I got that all in me, too. Good.
Do you recall the noises that he made? The yelling and moaning part early on, and then the what they call the sonorous or agonal breathing later on. Do you recall those noises?
I didn't remember being aware of it at the time of the incident. In the videos after that time, I was made aware of it, yes.
I mean, you didn't consciously pay attention to what sounds he was making? Is that what you're saying?
I wasn't even aware of that I would want to be listening to him. I wasn't aware of that he was in distress.
Well, didn't that agonal breathing cause you to be worried somewhat?
I wasn't familiar with what the agonal
Regardless of
was.
what it was, let's call it whatever that sound was. That didn't concern you? That sound?
No, the sound didn't. I wasn't aware of what it was.
No one checked Smith's breathing for a period of several minutes after he was handcuffed, correct?
I didn't think it was necessary. He was yelling and screaming. That indicated to me that he was breathing.
3 minutes after the pen camera starts recording, Gorman speaks directly to Smith.
Hey, what do you want, man? What do you want? Dave. 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 What do you want, man?
Smith never responds.
You gonna talk to us, man? Hey, you gonna talk to us? What's wrong with you? Smart 510, 514. Let me see if I can get his probes out. Get a bunch of shit over here.
What's the police purpose for keeping your knee on his back at that point?
I wasn't aware that he was struggling, so I was unsure if he was going to end up getting up again.
Really?
I was unaware that he was struggling physically.
5 minutes and 41 seconds into the recording, Callahan asks Gorman whether or not Smith is still breathing.
You breathing?
But neither move to check, instead continuing to speak to only one another.
My jaw hurts on this side. That's how your face is all red. Oh, mother.
Is there any manifestation in the audio or visual evidence that you've seen that indicates that you had any concern for Mr. Smith's welfare at all?
I think there's one point where I said, "Is he breathing?"
All right. That's the first manifestation?
I think so. It wasn't a serious question.
All right. Why wasn't it a serious question?
Because he just wasn't responding to us or talking to us, so I just made a comment, is he breathing? But I wasn't concerned whether he was really breathing.
Well, if a person is non-responsive, that's a problem, isn't it?
People are non-responsive all the time when they don't talk to us when they don't want to.
And they don't talk to you if they're unconscious.
Section
Correct.
argumentative.
No.
And only a few of them talk to you while they're dead.
Both remain on top of Smith and make no moves to confirm whether or not he is still breathing.
Can't break down. Fucking you better not have broke my jaw.
Smith is still unresponsive.
And you say, I can't bite down, motherfucker, you better not have broke my fucking jaw. You're referring to David Smith as the motherfucker there?
Yes.
During this interlude, when you're having this discussion, did you do anything to check and see if David Smith was breathing?
No.
If he had a pulse?
I don't recall.
Did
I
you
don't think
care if he was breathing or had a pulse at that time?
so. I assumed that he was breathing and had a pulse.
That isn't the question.
Did I care?
Yeah.
Yes, I cared.
Did you do anything physically to manifest that care, that shows that's evidence of any care about whether he had a pulse or he had a breathing?
I did not because I thought he was.
Okay.
It's around 7 minutes and 50 seconds into the recording when Callahan checks Smith's pulse.
Jimmy! Gordon! Gordon! I don't think he's breathing. I ain't got no smoke. 120 of them.
Callahan starts chest compressions 44 seconds after checking Smith's pulse. He continues administering CPR until EMS arrives 10 minutes and 53 seconds after he first called for an ambulance. They take over trying to resuscitate Smith. Callahan calls his wife around 4:26 p.m., 26 minutes after he and Gorman first arrived to the YMCA.
Hey, I ain't gonna be home for a while. If something bad happened, I can't talk about it right now. Yeah, I'm not hurt. Yeah, I'm not hurt, but I think me and Jimmy killed a guy. Yeah, I'll call you when I get a chance. But
Well, you believed in your heart of hearts when you told your wife that you and Jimmy killed a guy that he was dead, though, correct?
No, I said I thought that could be the case.
Well, you...
And I didn't believe that at the time that the way that you're using the word killed.
Did you believe in that Jim that you had killed David Smith?
I didn't believe so, no, sir.
Why did you think he died?
I wasn't sure at that point.
Smith was brought to Hennepin County Medical Center, where he lay in a coma for a week before passing away on September 17th. According to the medical examiner, the cause of death was mechanical asphyxiation. In the days after, the Minneapolis Police Department promised to do a thorough internal investigation through the Homicide and Internal Affairs units. But early police accounts portrayed Smith's death as taser-related. There was no mention of any restraint hold. It wasn't until a year after Smith's death, and after the grand jury declined to indict in the case, that Smith's family learned of the pen camera video.
I can still see the green paint on my office wall as I watch the video. It's like everything was so far away. You pin him down. You put your knee on top of him. And you don't even check to see if he's okay. Who does that? Who does that?
The family filed a lawsuit alleging that both officers had violated a police department policy on restraining subjects. In response to the lawsuit, the city said officers did not violate any department policies. It also denied that Smith died of mechanical asphyxia and hired medical experts who cited the excess levels of cough suppressant and antihistamines in his system and heart problems as contributors to his death. In subsequent depositions with Callahan and Gorman, both denied that they had failed to follow any training protocols.
If you had moved Smith to his side after he was handcuffed, calmed down, not resisting, given up, or complying, that would have been in accordance with your training policy and case law that you're taught, correct?
No.
Okay. Would it have been reasonable?
If we had thought he was in distress, it might have been reasonable.
But high-ranking officials acknowledged in the depositions that the officers had, in fact, committed policy violations.
Did you observe any policy violations in this case?
I may have, yes.
And what policy violations do you believe you may have observed in this case?
The duty to render, to render aid right away.
Did you express concern about that to anyone?
No.
How could he acknowledge that, but still the officers are not held accountable? And you could tell he didn't want to say the truth. He hesitated because he knew how big of a deal it was, but he had a responsibility to tell the truth, just like his officers had a responsibility to serve and protect my brother. But they didn't do what they were supposed to do.
The interim city attorney told the Post, quote, "The duty to render aid cannot occur until it is safe to do so, and it was not safe to roll him over while they were recovering because they had no energy left to fight him." The lawyers also questioned Darcy Klund, the homicide detective who led questioning of both officers on the scope and rigor of the investigation.
Did you ever ask Callahan whether Smith offered any continued resistance after being placed in the prone restraint?
No.
Was that important to you?
To ask him that question?
Yeah.
No.
Was it important to you in your analysis of the case?
No.
How about, did you ask Gorman that question?
No.
Was it important to you?
No.
Did you ask Callahan the length of the prone restraint position?
No.
Gorman?
No.
Was that important to you?
No.
Did you ask any questions about the length of the application of pressure to Smith's back?
No.
Was that important to you?
No.
Did you ask any question about the amount of pressure applied to Smith's back by Gorman?
No.
Either to Callahan or Gorman?
No.
Was that important to you?
No.
You didn't ask him any questions about the pen camera video?
Video usually speaks for itself.
Well, I know, but it also provides a vehicle to ask questions about, doesn't it?
It could if you had those questions.
And you didn't?
No.
The city attorney agreed with Klund's assessment, telling the Post, quote, "Once detectives viewed the pen camera video, it was obvious why the officers knelt on Mr. Smith, so no follow-up questions were necessary." Nearly 3 years after Smith's death, Minneapolis reached a $3 million settlement with his family in 2013. It was one of the highest settlements the city had ever awarded at that time.
Part of that settlement was that they would provide training on the risks of positional asphyxia to the Minneapolis Police Department.
We wanted justice. We wanted somebody to pay for this pain that we felt, this grief that we couldn't get past. And so, you can't imagine the pain I felt when I watched the video of George Floyd.
In both cases, police were responding to minor concerns. Both men resisted police and died after being restrained. Both deaths were ruled a homicide. But while Floyd's death caused 4 officers to lose their jobs and face criminal charges, no such changes happened after Smith died. Callahan, who remains on the Minneapolis police force after nearly 27 years, referred questions about the Smith case to the department. Gorman, who retired in 2016, did not respond to requests for comment. In June, the Minneapolis police chief issued a statement saying that their officers received the training the Smith family lawsuit settlement required. But the Smith family's lawyers have struggled to get more detail on what officers were actually taught.
I would have expected that after what happened to David Smith, that I would have received some evidence of a large presentation that every officer received that very specifically talked about how David died and how to avoid those types of deaths in the future. And from what I've observed, I have not seen any sort of training that looks that significant.
Storms is also on the team of lawyers representing Floyd's family in a civil lawsuit against the city, which alleges that the city didn't keep its promises to the Smith family.
We were a fool to believe that we made a difference. It's the same police department using the same tactic, killing another person. I'm speaking up now because before I trusted the system. If we don't do something about this, it's going to continue happening.